I believe, Nicole, that to get more women into STEM type professions, it really needs to start at a very early age. This notion that boys are good in math and girls aren't, that's a fallacy. And first graders, kindergartners, they're all equal, boys and girls, right? They all have the ability to learn. And I think society somehow, somewhere down the line, instills this notion that there's a difference and there shouldn't be.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to Inner Wealth, the Forbes Ignite podcast. I'm your host, Nicole Cacal, CEO of Forbes Ignite, and every week I'll be sharing with you my conversations with unique, creative, and innovative people across all different industries. These are people who are intellectually curious explorers who are also redefining what it means to be successful today. From personal to professional, we cover it all to understand what drives our guests to blaze their own trails and create nimble solutions within the industries that touch each of our lives. Our guest today is Liza Adams, Senior Vice President and Head of Marketing at Encompass Technologies. She is a powerhouse marketing executive who inspires so many people with her story of immigrating to the US at a young age. Starting from an engineering background to B2B marketing, she has been courageous in taking the leap in her journey and credits the people around her who believed in her. She is also paying it forward as a mentor for boys and girls in STEM. We talk about the importance of exposure to professional possibilities at a young age, using marketing to gather communities and make a positive impact, helping the next generation of generous leaders to tackle social and economic issues, and so much more. I know you're gonna love what she has to say. Here's our chat. Hi, Liza. How's it going? It's so wonderful for you to be here.
Hi, Nicole. Pleasure to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And we've known each other for quite some time now. So I would love to know just what have you been up to lately? I know you have a million things on your plate. There's a million plates spinning.
Yeah, depending on the day, I feel like a juggler, a short order cook. So marketing exec, mentor by weekday, and sports fanatic, fitness fanatic, crafter by weekend, and perfectly imperfect mother every day.
I love it. So tell us a little bit about Encompass, the company that you work with right now.
Yeah, love the company. And let me tell you a little bit about it and why I love it. We are changing the way people work. Mm-hmm. We are streamlining the way that suppliers, distributors, and retailers in the beverage industry are working together. And we're using technology to do that with ERP, SaaS, and cloud solutions, data and insights, e-commerce, and CRM. And we have this vision of minimizing empty shelves and product waste. And to do that, we are digitally connecting the supply chain. So when that happens, there's transparency across the three tiers, there's sharing of data across the three tiers. And ultimately what happens is that all of us as consumers benefit because the supply chain is able to predict demand. They're able to deliver the products when and where we want them. So super exciting. And I think what's really inspiring is that we're not just the innovation engine that brings the supply chain together. We are helping our customers, these suppliers, distributors, and retailers ultimately bring people together with food and beverage.
That is really exciting. And it's so important, the work that you're doing today, especially within the supply chain. We all know what's happening in the world right now, and we need more systems and people that have that vision that will bring all of this together and help improve the supply chain using technology. So that's really fascinating. So tell me, what has attracted you to the work that you're doing today?
Part of my passion is really bringing people together, right? There's power in having a diverse set of perspectives, diverse set of experiences. And the company allows me to do that at many different levels, not just in the business of connecting the supply chain and our customers, basically connecting families and friends together. But the company is very open to bringing in a diverse set of employees to the business, also helping early in career people rise through the ranks. And I love that about the culture of the business, that it respects differences, right? It respects differences, not just in experiences, but differences in where people are in their careers.
Speaking of bringing people together, which is one of your superpowers, I would say, tell us your story. What is your personal and professional journey to where you got today?
Thanks for asking, Nicole. It took quite some time for me to open up about my story. It wasn't until about maybe 5 years ago until I started realizing that my story can inspire others. But yes, I was born and raised in the Philippines. I hail from a very poor family, so poor that we had to make choices between going to school and eating or putting food on the table. And also had to make choices between staying in the Philippines with a family or coming to the United States by myself at the age of 14 to get better education and find better opportunities, not just for me, but also for the family. So with the help of a lot of people, Nicole, and I have the most selfless parents to be able to do what I did at 14, to come to the United States by myself. Looking back now, I have a 15-year-old, and it's hard for me to imagine as a mother that I would let my only daughter somewhere far, far away, right? And live her own life. But that was the humble beginnings of Liza Adams. And, a lot of people helped me along the way. And when I came here, a lot of great things happened. Not only my life changed, but my family's life changed. With my foster family in Michigan, I was a foreign exchange student. I learned about engineering at a summer camp in Michigan Tech. That's when I realized I wanted to be an engineer and went to college, got my electrical engineering degree, and then ended up in B2B tech, not in engineering, but doing B2B marketing. So that was my journey here. And I think my experiences earlier on in life taught me a lot about perseverance, a lot about hard work, and what it takes to succeed, and then ultimately giving back. Because I'm eternally grateful for all of the people that were instrumental getting me to where I am today.
Yeah, incredible. And speaking of hard work, you not only came to the United States when you were 14, but you actually graduated high school when you were just 16 years old. So that is such a huge accomplishment that just a little detail that you left out, but that I felt that was really important to add in. Did you always know that you're going to graduate at 16? And did you always know what you were going to do? Or was that just part of the journey?
I think it's just part of the journey, and it's really not as impressive as one might think if you just look at it at face value. We don't have, or at least back then, we didn't have junior high in the Philippines. And our school years were longer. So you go from sixth grade to high school. So all of us, many of us graduated when we were 16. But as we know, many students here in the United States graduate when they're 17, 18, maybe even 19. And there's a big maturity difference between a 16-year-old and an 18 or 19-year-old. So it was less about academic maturity. It was more the social, the emotional maturity that I think I also had to deal with. And that was absent my immediate family. So I guess from that perspective, it was courageous. And again, could not have done it by myself.
So who inspired you to take this leap?
Yes. So I talk about my very selfless parents. And to this day, I don't know how they were able to do it because I can't see myself doing it as a mother. And so they've inspired me because, it wasn't easy for them. I'm sure it was easier for me than it is for them, my coming here to the States. So they are my role models. And then there are just a ton, Nicole. We would take up this entire podcast if I thanked everyone that has helped me on this journey. I have some very generous family members that allowed me to come here. And then just some incredible mentors along the way, from me being early in my career to climbing the corporate ladder, being, people that believed in me more than I believed in myself. People who were tremendously frank and tremendously critical, because in those criticisms, I learned to be humble. You're not the best in the world in everything. So I am very thankful for all of those things. And I think when we get critical feedback, that's a gift. It is such an incredible gift for someone giving you feedback so that you could be a better person.
No, absolutely. And that leads me to my next question, specifically around mentorship, because you're a mentor yourself. And so you're basically paying it forward. Everything that you learned in the past really culminates into all the insights and wisdom that you're passing on to your mentees. So what kind of advice would you give to anyone that's seeking out a mentor per se?
So mentorship, while people think about it as one way, I actually think about it as two way. Just like every day, my children, 10 and 15, they teach me something every day. The children with their zest for life and, they don't let little things bother them. I learn from them, right? And I do the same with the people that I mentor. When we do these mentoring sessions, I always use real life experiences with them because stories are meant to inspire. And if they can see themselves in my story, then they'll remember and they might apply some of my experiences into their daily lives. And I love that about it. The stories I tell, the stories they tell me, they go both ways. I learn from them and they learn from me. I wish I had a formal mentor when I was growing up, right? Mine were, I was lucky. I ran across these people, but I'm so amazed with the early in career folks that I talk with today. They reached out to me. They are asking the right sets of questions. They are more mature than I was ever in my early days in my career. And that just is so inspiring to me. And I think, however trite it might sound, it truly feels like a really bright future ahead for many of us.
No, absolutely. And as a marketing executive, knowing storytelling as such a powerful tool, what is the key to using it in just the right way?
Yeah, so especially in B2B tech, I think we have come a long way in telling stories. Many companies to this day are still very much engineering or technology driven. We use a lot of ities and ables, meaning scalability, flexibility, those types of words, right? And we're enamored by the bits and the bytes, the features, the functions, the capabilities. And as many say, if you capture hearts and minds, the wallets will follow. At the end of the day, when you're targeting a new set of audiences, they don't know you, you barely know them. The only thing in common between the company and that person that you're targeting or that you're trying to market or sell to is really that we're human beings and that we have common passions. And when you can somehow tell a story that is relatable to that audience and then be able to tie how you solve a particular problem in that story, and then later on in that conversation, talk about how you do that with your product, then that sticks. But we don't necessarily need to lead with a product because the product isn't the story. The story is what can they do with that product? What problem can they solve with that product? How does it change their life? How does it change their behavior? So my philosophy in telling stories is market what you make possible rather than just market what you make.
That's brilliant. And I'm going to bring this back to your professional journey, mixed in a little bit with your personal journey. You started out as an engineering major, and then you turned out to be a marketing executive present day. So I'm wondering, what was your journey in closing that gap? And what are some of your learnings from being an engineering major? And how did that contribute to what you do today?
I've always liked to figure out how things worked. I'm one of those that might open up a toy to see what the mechanism inside looks like. And I think that was part of why I ended up in engineering. But then when I started my career in engineering, I was actually a sales engineer. So I was working side by side with salespeople, went to customer meetings, did some product demos, those types of things. And I realized that one of my superpowers was storytelling. One of my superpowers was, or is still, being able to explain things simply. So taking very complex concepts or complex products and solutions and being able to explain them in real world terms, daily life terms, and using analogies. And given that, as a sales engineer, my impact was generally one-to-one. So I talk with a customer, then we move on to the next customer. And I realized that in marketing, I can have a one to few or one to many impact because we can now craft these stories that then get publicized, that get broadcast. And I felt that my strength would be much better served with a much greater impact in that type of capacity.
Wow. Even though you end up not necessarily going into the original field that you studied for, that doesn't mean that the skill sets aren't going to be used in the future. So it's, like I said earlier, it's a culmination of all of your lifelong experiences, your professional and your personal experiences on your journey to what got you to where you are today. So I think that's really important. Just really hone in on these skills and don't be afraid to ask for help when you need it. So tell me about some of the projects that you're working on, like the Big Idea Project. I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah, so thanks for asking about the Big Idea Project. And I wish I could do more. COVID hasn't been very helpful in that aspect of it in working with our youth. But I love the Big Idea Project for a number of reasons. But at the highest level, it's really about creating the next generation of generous leaders. And what a generous leader is when someone is abundantly giving of themselves so that others can be better people, so that they can do better work. And that's really the concept that we try to instill within the youth. These are generally high school students in the community, and we prepare them for their life outside the classroom. The kids go into groups and they tackle social or economic or environmental issues in the world or in their community. So things like teenage suicide or youth image or homelessness or hunger, or abuse, those types of things. The kids then put a program in place to help combat some of these problems. They try to solve those problems at the grassroots level. And they share their program with the community. They actually enact the programs, and they use these programs to compete for scholarships. So the kids are ultimately able to not just have an impact in the community, but they're able to then use the money for their education. The other part of this is that the sponsors coming from various corporations are able to tap into the youth that go through this program as they graduate from college. They're able to tap into them as potential employees for their business. So that's what I love about it. It comes full circle. We create the next generation of leaders, and then they become leaders into these companies, and the cycle continues.
I love that. I absolutely love that model because it's also a different form of servant leadership or very similar to it. So that's what I love the most about that. I think that's brilliant, honestly. As a woman working in STEM, what do you think it's going to take for society to create more opportunities for other women in STEM?
I think sometimes a narrative, wherever that narrative comes from, somebody tells a little girl, oh, you're not good in math, or you're not supposed to be an engineer. You're supposed to be something else, but not that, right? And that story becomes reality in somebody's mind. I think exposing these little girls to other girls and women in STEM professions is a way to inspire them. It's a way to show that, yes, I can do this. Yes, this is fun. Yes, I can be surrounded by others who are just like me. And yes, they made it happen. So I think there's a lot of value in doing that. So I actually really enjoyed tutoring fifth grade math when my daughter was in fifth grade. So I think taking those little opportunities to make a difference with the younger people is just fantastic. And then as these girls grow into high school and into college, taking the opportunity to help those early in career people and offering suggestions for things that they might try. You know, I was fortunate enough to be part of a women in engineering program when I was 15, and I was exposed to all the disciplines of engineering at Michigan Tech in Houghton, Michigan. And that was over a week-long program. And I wish there were more of those because the girls do get to enjoy not just the company of other girls and women, but they get to see what an engineer does. They get to see it applied to the real world versus just conceptual things that they might learn in the classroom.
Right. Right. And I absolutely love that because you can't become what you don't know.
That's right.
And so that type of exposure is so vital to getting more women and girls into STEM. So I absolutely love that. I want to bring this back to using marketing as a force for good in the world, because I know that's a huge passion of yours. So what advice would you have for some aspiring marketers who want to make a bigger impact?
I would say, think about what the company is passionate about authentically. What drives the company beyond making money? And it could be just making money. There are those companies that are primarily in business to make money, but most companies are driven by something bigger than that. For example, Encompass, we're driven by minimizing empty shelves and product waste. There's a lot of societal and environmental benefits to that, and also business benefits. There are companies, one of my colleagues, David Baldwin, he owns a brewery in North Carolina. It's called Pegasaurus. I love the name of that brewery. That one of their passions, they're all about bringing people together. And it's so appropriate for a brewery, right? Because we, amongst friends, we enjoy beer, we enjoy drinks, and that's how people come together. And part of his brand is this beer called Don't Be Mean. And I love this story because he created this beer because of his passion for bringing people together and diversity. And this is around the LGBTQ movement. And they created this beer to support it. And it's one of the fastest growing beers that he has. It has made a lot of money in support of that community. So you can see how the business has thrived, not just to make money, but also to support what it authentically believes in and is passionate about. So I think as marketers, not only is thinking about what the company is passionate about really important in how we build brands, it's a way for us to connect. It's a way for us to connect with human beings, with like-minded people. And this isn't about virtue signaling. This is about truly finding the passion of the company and making that part of the brand.
What are some other examples of using marketing for good?
Yeah, so one of our key partners is the National Beer Wholesalers Association. And many of our distributors are part of that association, and they're some of our biggest customers. And if you think about our distributors, they deliver food and beverages to retailers, and they might have access to normally non-public areas like admin offices, the back alleys, the storage facilities, the inventory stock room. The NBWA has a program that really focuses on human trafficking and ensuring that we have an additional set of eyes and ears and feet on the ground to look for signs of exploitation. So in partnership with the NBWA, Encompass is working on putting on our software a button that will allow these delivery drivers and salespeople to push the button. And from that, they will see what numbers they need to call to report signs of exploitation. So I think it's just one of the things that we're doing. There's no extra charge for that button, but it's one of those things that we're doing to support our customers in their program and in reporting human trafficking types of activities.
No, that's incredible that your company is responding to a serious problem, a serious challenge that's out there. And with all of the extra eyes and ears and boots on the ground that can help with this, the more the better. So I really commend you and your company for doing this. What inspires me the most about you is that you're not afraid of following your passions and your purpose. And I think it really shines through every time that we speak together. And so as a marketing executive, as someone that I've known over the past couple of years, I've really seen that type of growth and how you help others grow as well. So thank you for everything that you do. I really think that it's so important to have more people like you exposing younger women to careers in STEM and much more than that. So you're paying it forward. You're taking all the right steps. You're living life with purpose. And so I think that's a huge part of the definition of success. And I always ask people this at the end of every podcast that I do. So how would you define success?
So earlier in my career, it was all about climbing the corporate ladder. It was the title, it was the compensation, but it truly has changed over the last 10 to 15 years. I would say, be the change you wish to see in the world has been the motto that I have been clinging on for over a decade now. And what that really means to me is there are different ways to make change or impact change. And to some, it might be climbing the corporate ladder, because when you climb the ladder, you have the power to change people, communities, and even the world. To some, it might be finding companies that have common passions as you. And to some, it might be doing some nonprofit or being with your family and children most of the time. So there's various ways to do it. And in my world, I have found that there is no one strategy to achieving the change you wish to see in the world. At home, it's about just being the best mother that I could be. And, at the beginning of this podcast, I said that I'm a perfectly imperfect mother, right? But every minute that I spend with my children, I feel like that's part of building on to that success story that I want to build, right? So if I could somehow instill in these kids something that they could take, with them, whether it's in their careers, whether it's in building their families, whatever it might be, then that's success to me. In the mentorships that I've been doing, if I share a story that somehow sticks in a child's mind and he or she is able to take key learnings from that, and it influences the careers they choose down the road, and it helps them be successful, then I consider that success. So there's just so many things that I consider successful, and they're not big major things, but it's these little things that add up over time where ultimately I can say, all right, I made a change that made an impact in this world. So, I don't put markers anymore like I used to. Every little marker is incrementally important, and then every little increment turns out to be a big thing.
No, absolutely. There's no success that's too big or too small. Your story of success could apply to many, many other people, especially those who are listening right now. They would consider your success story to be so inspiring and something to aspire to. And so something that I find really funny, Liza, is that you mentioned at the beginning of this podcast that you've been sharing your story over the past 5 years or so. Where can listeners find your articles if they wanted to delve more into the story of Liza Adams?
I have found this passion for writing, but I just haven't had a lot of time to blog and to write. So every now and again, I at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, I try to post something or write something on the weekend. But I am fairly prolific on social media, so you could find them on my LinkedIn profile. And I always love getting comments from people. I try to engage with people who read my articles or my posts. I'm on Facebook, barely on Twitter, so don't go look for me there. But LinkedIn probably is the best place to find me. And many of my mentors and mentees have contacted me through LinkedIn, and I've built many relationships just through those conversations.
Nice. No, that is wonderful. And thank you so much for everything, Liza, and for speaking with me today. I learned a lot. I cannot wait to do this again soon.
Thank you, Nicole. You have a great weekend.
Thanks so much. You too. That's it for this week's episode of Inner Wealth. I hope you enjoyed our conversation and that you'll join us next week as we continue to explore all the ways success is being redefined in our ever-changing world. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review our podcast on your favorite podcast app, and follow us on Instagram at Forbes Ignite for more thought-provoking content and opportunities to engage with us. I'm your host, Nicole Cacal. Thanks for joining us.